Hi, welcome back to The Scent Advocate. Tonight I'm going to talk about 5 different fragrances from my Tom Ford collection. I guess I've been spending a lot more time than I ever thought I would talking about designer fragrances. I didn't think I had that many, but there seemed to be a strong interest in Tom Ford. I do have quite a few, not many other designer fragrances, but I do have quite a few Tom Ford. So I'm happy to talk about those. The thing is, these fragrances are not fragrances I hear spoken about an awful lot these days because some of them have been discontinued. Now, I know there are strong feelings around discontinued fragrances and having them as topics of discussion, but they do seem to be available for a much, much higher price point than what they would have originally sold for at retail. But they do seem to be available. And there are also options for haggling or bidding. I won't get into where I saw them because I don't know how reputable all of the sellers are. So I would feel terrible if I made a recommendation for a certain place where you could buy these fragrances and I really couldn't vouch for the legitimacy of any one seller. I'm sure most of them are fine, but I can't say for certain with all of them, so I won't discuss that. That said, this is about the fragrances themselves, and I want to talk about how they smell. I hope that's okay with all of you. I would love to hear about whether you've experienced these fragrances or whether you plan to experience them, right? There's a difference between getting a full bottle at a really elevated price and getting some decants. And I also saw quite a bit of options for decants for these fragrances. So without further delay, let's jump right in. I did take some notes for the notes. The first fragrance I'll talk about is Plum Japonais. And this is a 50 ml eau de parfum. I bought this several years ago. I absolutely adore it. I use it sparingly because it does appear to be discontinued. The notes in this are cinnamon, plum, immortelle. There's a boozy note in there. Saffron, camellia, cypress. Oh, this light's getting a little weird. Okay, let's fix that. Cypress, oud, amber, benzoin, pine resin, and vanilla. This is it's a jammy plum and a spiciness with a boozy quality for sure. I think the plum and the cinnamon really come out in this. Of course, it's got the benzoin and amber and vanilla base going. The cypress is there, and this is a theme, I think, in the fragrances I'm going to talk about tonight. Not all of them, but there's a dark kind of coniferous quality, the pine resin in this case, but there's a coniferous, tree sap quality in these fragrances, and that is certainly the case here. When looking at the current price point for this bottle, I did see it at about, well, just a little shy of $900, and that would absolutely be beyond my price point for 50 ml. But it is beautiful, and if this is something that really interests you, there are decants, like I said, that I saw out there that appear to be legitimate. Consider getting a sample. This is very unique smelling to me. I don't know of any other fragrance that is spot on. Now, there are some in the same family, the same, similar, I don't want to say DNA, right? Because I associate that with a house or a designer, but in the same sort of family. And if that's what you're looking for, definitely check out the fragrance websites that give comparisons of a specific fragrance to others. It reminds me of this, it reminds me of that. Definitely check that out because this one is tough to find, but absolutely gorgeous. A little goes a long way. I'm probably 2/3 of the way, maybe not. about halfway through this bottle, and I am going to be distraught when it's gone. Next is white suede. You can still get this. White suede, 50 ml, eau de parfum. The notes in here are suede, musk, sandalwood, thyme, tea, rose, saffron, lily of the valley, olibanum, and amber. I adore this stuff, and it's come out in a new bottle. I believe the bottle is now clear with maybe a white top with some gold plating on the top, much like this, only the top plastic is white, I think. Oh gosh. Musk and suede, just all the way. This reminds me of fragrances from the late 70s and early 80s that my grandfather used to wear. And I can't tell you what it was, but there were similar notes. Really gorgeous. Plum Japonais, I should have mentioned, is unisex all the way. This is also unisex. I think it leans as feminine as it does masculine. And I think it is universally likable. I think Plum Japonais could be a little thick and resinous for people. Maybe it's not everyone's cup of tea. It's hard for me to imagine anyone not liking white suede. What do you think of it? Have you tried it? I've seen retail between $200, a little bit under on discount sites, and about $265 regular retail. Next, I've got Patchouli Absolu, 50 ml, eau de parfum. The notes in this are patchouli, leather, moss, cypriol, guaiac wood, bay leaf, tonka bean, amber, musk, rosemary, and cashmere. Now, keep in mind, and I talked about this in another video I made not too long ago, the complexity associated with a lot of different notes I found can be polarizing. It appeals to me. I like heavy, thick, very, very complex fragrances as opposed to more linear fragrances. But not everyone is into that. So keep in mind, these are all going to be more complex, more kind of multi-dimensional, and Patchouli Absolu is no exception. Now, I remember when I first got this fragrance years ago, I was reading commentary on it, and people were just viciously going at it in comments, talking about, oh, it's not real patchouli. Oh, this is the most patchouli and the most realistic patchouli I've ever smelled, you know, just really, really passionate about it. And I noticed that on more than one site, and I've heard other commentary about it. People get really, really passionate about this fragrance and about their patchouli generally. But this, yeah, this is not, in my opinion, a typical patchouli. As patchoulis go, it's heavy, it's dark, maybe a hint of that kind of cocoa chocolate. It's not bright green. It's got that, again, that sort of piney, resinous backdrop going on. And I can't account for that in the notes listed, except for the rosemary. So rosemary, the kind you cook with, yeah, that's got its own well-known kind of generally accepted fragrance. But when you cut the stem of a rosemary bush, it's got more of that piney resinous. To me, it smells a little bit different than the needles. And that's what I get in here. If you've ever, I try desperately to grow rosemary every year and I fail miserably. This past year was very much the same, but that is how I got into pruning them and smelling the difference between the needles and the woody part. Really gorgeous, probably leans more masculine, but I have no problem wearing it. This is discontinued. At least that's what my research showed. And so I'm seeing prices for this between $800 and $1,200 for a 50 ml. Oof. This packs a punch. Let me tell you, when I wear this, It is very, very sparingly. How much do I have? Yeah, I've got about 3/4, because you just need a little bit and people can smell you a mile away. It is gorgeous stuff. Very dark green resinous. The leather is not animalic, but it's bold. Beautiful stuff. Moving on, we've got, where are you? Vert D'Ensens. This is also an eau de parfum, 50 ml. This fragrance is pine resins, fir, heliotrope, boxwood, and incense. This also appears to be discontinued, and I saw it at a $700 approximately price point. This, I was going through a phase where I picked up the next several, right? So the next couple, I should say. So this, the Patchouli, and then the final one I'll talk about, kind of at the same time. It was winter. I was discovering Tom Ford and falling in love with these really bold, really dramatic fragrances. Oh gosh. This is so beautiful. There is a cigarette, a smoking cigarette note, a cigarette being smoked note in here, but not in a bad way. I know that's hard to imagine, right? But this is the most beautiful cigarette smoke you've ever smelled. And it's not just cigarette, right? This is, if you've ever smelled a cigar being smoked, which I absolutely do not like, that smell has always put me off. But if you took that and wrapped it in something absolutely stunning, you packaged it in the most beautiful, aromatic, gorgeous set of notes, that's what you've got here. What really pops out to me is the pine resin. The heliotrope is beautiful, but sometimes heliotrope can come off a bit powdery. That's not the case here. It's a straight up floral, and it may as well have been another. The heliotrope doesn't stick out to me as a quintessential heliotrope, at least not the way that I've come to know it. But it is a floral that is really, really well combined with the other fragrances. The pine resin, the fir, the boxwood, all that heavy pine, sappy pine, mixed with the incense with a floral to soften it up. That's what you got here. Leans masculine for sure. It's even a bit woody as it dries down. Another one that packs a serious punch. You do not want to overspray these. These will, you know, for people who are not into fragrance, this is going to be a heavy hitter. So you got to be conscientious. But I absolutely love it. Stunning stuff. Haven't smelled anything else like it. Vert D'Ensens. And the last one I'll talk about tonight is Fourger D'Argent, 50 ml, eau de parfum. This does not appear to be discontinued, so I think you can still get this one for about $300, unless my research is flawed, but I think you can. This is cistus, ginger, lavender, akigala wood, and coumarin. Oh, and citrus notes, sorry. Okay. This, let's see here. Yeah, oh. It's a Fourger, for sure. It's a bright, happy, clean, crisp, zippy fragrance that can go either way, right? It's unisex, but maybe just slightly masculine leaning, because something like this, one might naturally associate being a Fourger with the barbershop thing. But it is not your typical barbershop fragrance, no way. Get a lot of the citrus, ginger, and a lavender that's very bright, fresh, and young. Not a dried, dusty lavender, the traditional type. When I lived in Utah, lavender grew beautifully. It's one of the few things that naturally grew really well out there. So we had a lot of it around. I love it, you know, so it was great to have it in the yard, but I used to cut it back sometimes. And when you cut into a young lavender plant, depending on the varietal, you get this kind of a bright floral, not the typical quintessential that you know used to find in sachets and things like that. No, this is a really nice version of lavender. The ginger, it doesn't smell like a cheap body splash or anything like that. The citrus is there, but you can't really tell, in my opinion, whether you're talking about an orange or a clementine or a lemon. It's not a lime. It's not, you know, a really bitter kind of that, you know, really acidic, not at all. It's definitely very pleasant. The wood, not so much. I don't get it. Coumarin rather, yeah, I can definitely, it's softening things up a bit. Gorgeous stuff. This is not quite as heavy hitting and very, very, what's the word I'm looking for? It wears a little bit closer to the skin, but not much at all. The other fragrances I talked about, with the exception maybe of, well, no, white suede does too, it just does it differently. These really project. They're very strong, so the longevity is incredible, but they project big time. This one probably projects the least, so keep that in mind, but it's still a powerhouse. I will say that as this dries down a bit more, the lavender comes out a little bit more, but not a feminine lavender. All right, so those are the 5 that I wanted to talk about tonight. Do you know these fragrances? Do you love them? Are you interested in getting decants of them? Would you ever consider paying discontinued fragrance prices for these? And if so, how far would you go? Have you ever done it before? Tell me your experiences. I have been tempted a couple of times, not with the Tom Fords, but I have with a few others. And the price points, you know, again, it's all about the market, and I respect that, but there was just no way. I found, and I'll talk about this in another video, the ones that I was interested in getting after having been discontinued, I found similar fragrances for much, much less, and I was satisfied with those. They, you know, as I say, they kind of scratch the itch. But these would be tough. These are tough acts to follow. They are magnificent. I think pretty singular, but you tell me, have you smelled anything similar? And I think if you have, it would be good for those folks who are interested, who don't want to pay the above market price. That's it. So let me know in the comments what you think. If you're not yet a subscriber, I'd love to have you. Please consider subscribing and give me a like if you like the content. I'll get into some more of the Tom Fords. I do have others that have been discontinued or are more rare. And I'm really happy to talk about those. Like I said, I don't hear too much about them, and it's high time someone start talking about them again. Thank you so much, and I'll see you soon. Bye.